Many Native Americans are wondering about the streets of San Francisco as homeless. It is painful to see those who own this land be homeless in their own homeland. I wanted to know why so very many Native Americans are homeless in the city. I approached Kathy Chapman of Native American Health Center.
Many of our people have been displaced. Through the generations, we have had intergenerational institutionalization of the people, when people were rounded up and placed or forced marched to reservations. From the reservations, children were tied up and put in the backs of wagons to be taken to boarding schools. And this brought about a breakdown in the family structure. And from boarding schools, some people never went back to their families. They lost their language. Some went into the military, which is another institution. And many people ended up in prison. We have a disproportionate high number of people in the penal system compared to our numbers. There are less than 2 million federally recognized Native people. And way back when the Bureau of Indian Affairs was under the Department of War, somebody had a very insidious way of making this blood quantum requirement, so that there is a different blood quantum requirement for housing, education, and health care. Many people are full-blooded natives, but they might be of 5 different tribes. They might know their family history, their oral history, but they do not comply with the requirement needed. Native American people are the only minority group required to have a blood quantum for services. So here in the city, we have many people who either came out on relocation during the 50s. During the 50s, there was a large push to assimilate Native people faster into the dominant society. This also opened up many lands for energy development, as in the Southwest. So we have large numbers of people that have gone back and forth. They come out here, they go back home. After so many years, if they go back home, they're not eligible for services on the reservations. Over the years that I've been doing not only HIV work, I initially started off in the Oakland Clinic in the perinatal department. I have been trying to get someone to listen that we need adult case management for our people that are wounded. They have mental health issues, post-traumatic stress, substance abuse issues, and have experienced a lot of trauma. Some of these folks are never going to heal. What is the humane thing to do? I personally consider it genocidal that some of these tribal entities who can afford to take care of their own people don't. And once they're in the city, they're considered throwaways from their reservation systems, and it's assumed that the city will absorb and take care of the Native people as they would any other minority population. Years ago, there were more services available. There aren't now. There are numerous housing lists. There are also issues that really don't make any sense in regards to public housing. Like, if you've been evicted before, you're not eligible, which is normally the population that needs the Department of Public Health housing. Right. So we try and get people into supportive housing. That's not always possible. And because of free will and free choice, people aren't all required to have money management who are on SSI.
I met Iggy Strangerhorse, who was a resident at my hotel. I asked him why he became homeless.
Mismanagement.
On whose part?
On my part.
Can you explain a little bit more?
Well, mismanagement of my financial resources.
What did you do?
What?
What did you do?
I spent them in other directions rather than paying my rent.
I also asked him how it felt being homeless, and this is what he had to say.
It doesn't feel pretty at all. Like today, I wish I still had further permanent housing, but I'll have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So for now, my immediate concern is getting into a shelter for maybe like a week at a time, up to the point where I get permanent and stable housing again.
Okay.
So until I get to that point, in between I'll probably have to use a shelter system of staying, at a shelter. And from what I understand, they usually give you a bed 7 days a week. So that's the route I'll have to take now.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's sleeping on the street in a sleeping bag, under an overpass or someplace where I would generally feel safe sleeping outside.
Kathy also spoke about the new and growing Native American homeless population and the challenges and also the limited resources that they have to tackle this problem. So you were saying that because of the complicated procedure to get into a housing, there's all bunch of people who don't have access to these procedures are getting homeless. Is that what you're saying?
Right, and we have some people who have been stable for years who are now homeless. We have 10 housing subsidies through the Housing Coalition. We had 8 of those filled when we were told that the last 2 were frozen. And because of the cutbacks from the state, those last 2 will not be available. So we have a growing population, less resources available, and more people on the streets. And some of the people prefer to stay in the streets than in the shelters. They feel safer on the streets, and I think that's a sad state of how the system works.
What makes them feel safer in the streets than in the shelters?
Usually they've been attacked by other minorities in the shelters, or they have been robbed, and there isn't enough staff to make sure that those things don't happen.
I asked Kathy what was being done to help the Native American homeless population.
We only can make referrals. We provide a housing list. We will go through that list. We will help fill out applications. For those that have serious medical issues, we try and find supportive housing for those folks. But those opportunities are becoming less and less. Some people have been on waiting lists for years.
And what are some of the efforts to help those who are in the streets, not necessarily in case of housing, but in other, like healthcare and other services?
We refer across the street from where we are right now is the Mission Neighborhood Resource Center. We cannot directly refer our patients to a shelter. They have to go across the street, become a client of the Mission Neighborhood Resource Center in order to try and get one of the county beds in a shelter. It's a very difficult situation, and it's very heartbreaking to see so many people in the streets.
Rodney Little Bird of City College of San Francisco doesn't believe that there are any homeless Native Americans, but there are some houseless Native Americans.
There are actually no homeless Native Americans on their homeland. Since Creator gave them all of this northern hemisphere, regardless of who owns the land, how it was obtained, or purchased, or fenced, as long as he is walking upon the land of the northern hemisphere, he is at home. He will never be homeless upon the land as long as his feet touch the soil of this continent.
So what do you call those Native Americans who are sleeping under the canopy of open sky, and then we have no beds to sleep in, no place to take a shower in, no kitchen to eat in? What do you call those people?
I say that they were part of an economic disaster, that employment, those are employment and urbanized issues, and even they, in their plight, will tell you, I am not homeless. When my feet touch the ground, I am at home. And wherever that land is, be it in the middle of San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, or in the prairies of the Midwest. They are, in fact, at home. A basic domicile does not render them a registered address. It does not equal to that. A registered address does not indicate that the Native American is either home, housed, or homeless.
In conclusion, whatever the argument is, the Native Americans, who are the principal inhabitants of this land and who rightfully own this land, are homeless and living a deplorable life in our streets. The concerned authorities and the department must take care of this problem and help these homeless Native Americans return to their homes and have a safe place to live in. Thank you very much.